shift, as they say, happens, right? And it's true if you look at audience personas, preferences, they certainly aren't static. They are constantly evolving. And so are customer engagement trends. So the timing really couldn't be better than now to discuss both because we have some solid data in the Braze annual Global Customer Engagement Review. And it is packed full of it. It's 46 plus pages of it. And I have to say, one of the best reads I have personally seen. So for that reason, we're going to deep dive into the data and how marketers can harness the full potential of data to inform sustainable growth. And my guest here is Sam Miller, lead strategic business consultant at Braze. Sam, it is great to have you, and I bet you are celebrating the launch of this incredible report.
Yeah, super exciting. And what we love about this report is that it gives, this impact, this impetus at the start of many companies' financial years to think about how they're going to go after their customer engagement for the year ahead.
Fascinating how you also created a range of companies because it's about learning from the best in class, which brings me, not a plug, but a segue to Braze, which is a leading customer engagement platform used by businesses for multi-channel marketing. That's what we know. We know Braze. But what's your responsibility there, Sam?
Yeah, thank you. So strategic consulting at Braze has quite a wide remit. We work with customers first and foremost, and there's kind of three areas that we focus on. The first is all around quantifying business value for our customers. It's great to get new technology, but how do you use that technology to deliver a tangible impact? Our second area is all around industry expertise. So, there's a lot to be learned if you're a QSR brand from retail, but also you want to understand what the best in class are doing in your industry. And that's what that kind of practice is all about. And lastly, it's all about creativity and innovation. So one of the most interesting kind of trends we're seeing, especially with the AI piece, and that really came out in the CER, is around adding more creativity into what was kind of thought of as performance marketing maybe previously. So in customer engagement, trying new things to deliver outsized results.
And it fits with your personal work, I think, because your colleagues, it's very interesting. They are impressed with your work and what you do and what you are, because they say, and I quote, and they say you represent what future digital experts will be like, and call out your best strength is building roadmap. So that's impressive. What does it require to build roadmap, and where do you see marketers missing a step? Because again, you work directly with them.
I think the first area that we're really leaning into this year is around bringing together different strands from different silos. So helping our customers, say they work in the customer engagement team, maybe they're bringing in more of a brand voice or thinking how they can amplify those brand communications through their customer engagement. I think the other piece that's really interesting is around creativity and innovation. So maybe you dedicate 5, 10, 15% of your budget towards something that, is net new, so that you're always trying new things. Because I think one of the things that we see with a lot of the customers that we speak to is they're kind of stuck in their day to day and they don't think maybe about that longer term horizon and how they're pushing their capabilities up over time.
Let's talk about the Braze annual customer engagement review, which you're calling CER, I think for short, and we will too. It's about providing brands and businesses with a guide to basically get on track, to understand and focus on data in a very, very different way. It was surprising to me that you found that, yes, brands are totally focused on data. So they get it. Data-driven marketing, it's real. But yet they're not ready to action on the insights. That's an incredible disconnect.
It really is. And I was amazed that we saw only 6% of customers applying customer insights to their product and their brand approach, because it feels like for the past couple of years, all of those approaches are kind of aligning in customer engagement. I think one of the biggest things with first party data that we're seeing now is the application fully across the life cycle. So, for example, in retail, where brands are maybe leaning more into retention because the cost of acquisition has gone up, but also customer engagement's kind of playing this key central role as it's extending out into the acquisition space. We have a product called Audience Sync, which helps brands to use their first party data to be more effective and drive efficiency and effectiveness in their paid media space. So we're seeing that first party data be applied across the life cycle. And I think the other really interesting piece is the ability to bring in different sources of data. So we're seeing more brands lean into the idea of different integrations. Cloud data ingestion is one that we're talking about quite a lot. But it could be, say, if you're a retailer, thinking about how you're bringing in your POS data or your loyalty card data, or maybe it's your in-store data, so that you're creating that kind of 360 view of the customer so that it's relevant across channels, and whether that's, offline or online. And because people don't just shop, online or in store, they're doing it across both, and they're using their life cycles is getting more and more complex.
What's also complex is that you need to use the data to also improve the product. And you say that also in the report. You come out and point to that as a must follow trend, something you need to consider. You need to apply customer insights to improve the product, but a mere 6% are actually doing that. What does that tell you? What needs to change?
I think it points to the fact that often marketers or customer engagement professionals don't have as much impact over the way that the product's being built, or there's a disconnect where product's sitting in a separate silo. And what's great about joining up the out of product and the in product experiences, the gains. So if you use a combination of both in product and out of product channels, you can see really great results. So for example, one of the stats coming out of the customer engagement review was 25% more purchases per user if you use that combination of in product and out of product than just out of product. So if you think of out of product maybe as more of that kind of broadcast channels where you're getting that great reach, combining that with in product channels means that you can really tailor that message to when people are active, say in the app or on the web. But it's then feeding that data back into the product so that your product becomes much more compelling, and giving marketers and customer engagement professionals the ability to own that journey, especially when it goes in product, because for a lot of brands, that's where purchases or the really high value actions are taking place.
And let's just be clear on that for a moment for our audience, because in product, out product, I haven't heard about that terminology. How do you see that? How do you split that?
Great question. So out of product would be channels like email, mobile push, web push. So things that are taking place not directly in your product. And when we say product, you needn't necessarily have an app. It could be your website. And then in product messaging would be, say, in-app messages. Braze has a channel called Content Cards, which is like an in-product channel, which you can, the difference being, say, from like an in-app message is that it's kept around for a longer time. So it's a perfect canvas to serve, say, product recommendations or something like that. But what's great about it is that a marketer can control those areas of the product so that the consistency of the journey is kept. From, say, an email where a user's clicking through, there can be a message in product that matches that, so it feels like we're actually speaking to customers based on what we know about them.
The in product messaging is going to feel a little bit more like a conversation, and we have reams of research around how effective that is.
Exactly. And we're seeing that kind of in product spread as well to like new channels. So we're seeing WhatsApp, we've got Line, and I think you pronounce it Kakao, in our APAC markets, really being brought into that channel mix. And we also see that, say, in product messaging alone isn't as effective as having that combination, that cross-channel piece. So we know how, cross-channel messaging is rapidly evolving. And if you're adding that out of product to your in-product strategy, we see 6.5x more purchases per user than just using in-product messages alone. So it's not just, that closeness to the high value actions or the revenue driving activities that are maybe taking place in your product. It's that joined up approach that is really powerful in driving customers towards valuable outcomes for your brand.
We talk about the disconnects. That's always the downside, but there are very positive signs in your report as well. Um, for example, marketers shifting the focus from upstream metrics like clicks to actions that add value. That's really encouraging because that is really where the value is in the times that we are now. But what do you see as the key driver?
There's two elements to it. The first is that it's about access to the right data and being able to track that data, especially in real time, so that you understand how those upstream metrics are having an impact on those downstream metrics. And the second piece that we're hearing more frequently from our customers is around the macro environment, that they need to prove value internally to secure those budgets.
And what do you say are the metrics now linked to value? It's easy to say, well, they have to show value, but what are the metrics we're looking at? Is there even a North Star metric for that matter?
I'd say the one that we're hearing most frequently is customer lifetime value.
Okay.
I think it's part of a wider play around sustainability and profitability, because whereas maybe in the past, a lot of the brands that they were speaking to were thinking about growth, above all other things. So they were really happy to spend to get that growth. We've seen changes towards more, when we say sustainability, that ability to run the business in a sustainable way. We're seeing more around driving, if we think about segmentation, driving our most profitable customers to do more, because we know that that investment in those customers is going to yield those results. So I think it is becoming more data driven in the way that brands are driving that revenue. And I think that the other really interesting piece is that we're seeing maybe slightly less budget for, say, loyalty activities at certain brands, but what they're doing is they're being more targeted, because they're able to predict where that budget will go the furthest and where it can drive the most revenue. But to be able to do that, you have to understand how that engagement's driving those downstream metrics. And that's really what we're seeing. Companies being much more clever in the way that they target their most valuable customers, and maybe don't target those that they don't feel are going to have that CLTV increase over time.
So that's fascinating, because we used to say customer engagement looked like this. It was maybe a certain event or a certain action. You said that is an engaged customer. But of course, if you're looking at value differently and the metrics are different, then how we frame valuable customer engagement is also different. So what does an engaged customer look like? What should our audience be looking for? The key characteristics of this audience have changed.
I think what engagement looks like really differs across the life cycle. If we think about newly onboarded customers, what value looks like there and engagement looks like for them is around getting them to certain levels of engagement during that onboarding period, which mean we're going to set up for a longer term relationship. So it could be, if you're a streaming brand, that you're getting 3 views within the first 2 weeks, say, because we know at that 3 view level, that customer is going to be kept around for much longer. It could also be, if you're a retail brand, where like post first purchase, what are we looking to do with that customer? And engagement there could be that either we're bringing them back to the website so that they're getting more educational content and understanding more about how they can maximize the value from that purchase, or if there's a shorter product cycle, that we're looking for product replenishment, or it could simply be that we're looking to keep them active and push them towards signing up for more communications channels.
So the metrics are evolving, the strategies to activate audiences are evolving. What I found is a real highlight of your report, I have to say, is how you're looking at what top performing companies do and how that's evolving. And you call them ACE brands, which is pretty cool, I think, because you give us something to aim for here. And they excel at understanding and pursuing these metrics. That's one of the ways that they stand out.
It is. What we see our ACE brands doing is often moving maybe from a more single channel view towards a much more complex cross-channel view. And we see that 12% of these ACE brands are more likely to engage with customers across 3+ channels. So they're starting to, layer on that complexity and meet those audiences where they are. they're not just putting their internal view out into the world, they're being much more customer centric in terms of their channels. And that kind of customer centricity extends to personalization, with 73% of those ACE brands more likely to carry out sophisticated messaging. So whether that's, being more triggered to when customers are active, or responding in real time to behavior that's taking place. And then also they're more likely to update customer journeys based on performance feedback. So they're thinking about that test and learn approach and constantly iterating and responding to what they're seeing those audiences do. So I think one of the big things really is that they're moving from being channel centric to being customer centric. And that's probably the biggest area that we see.
And leaning in on automation to do that, because you're updating customer journeys and moving it over to a focus on sustainable growth. But it is about that test and learn, experiment, in this case, automate.
Exactly. And this is where AI is going to play this incredibly crucial role. We see that the complexity in digital marketing and customer engagement, and especially, is going up over time. So how do you deliver on those kind of personalized experiences at scale? And that's the role that AI can play, whether that's, automatically selecting the path that a customer is going to go down because we know something about them from the profile that we've got already, or whether it's, we're putting something new out into the world and we're going to test lots of different elements, whether that's different copy, whether that's different creative, whether that's, launching it on different channels. What are the channel combinations that resonate the most with customers? So AI can do a lot of that heavy lifting and also help customers to get things live quicker and more easily, and so they can test new things out. So it's not, that they're just optimizing, it's that they're bringing new things into the world. And I think another thing that we see that our ACE brands that are doing in that space is they're also sharing those learnings and insights across more teams. And in that way, they're creating a more holistic customer approach across their organization. And that really, pays a lot of benefit.
That's interesting, because I'm hearing a lot in the market about not just product and marketing come together, but there is an interesting new focus on CRM and saying, you know what, that could be the data hub of the company. Everything is coming in there about the customer. Why isn't that informing everything about the customer journey, the customer experience, and ultimately the customer communications as well?
Exactly, because it's not a one size fits all approach. What your customers are looking for from your brand is really dependent upon where they are in their journey. So over time, that level of intelligence is going to increase. And it's almost like that idea of air traffic control, that your brand wants to understand what that customer wants from you. And we're going to give them the most relevant messaging that's going to improve the value equation in their heads around your brand. And you're pushing them towards something that's more and more valuable, rather than it just being, oh, this person's purchased, we're just going to send them like a thank you email, or we're going to follow up with an NPS tracker or something like that. It's really understanding and reacting to what that customer's doing and the journey that they're on with your brand.
And orchestrating those channels, Sam, as well, because you're showing that the ACE brands, they also engage with customers on at least 3 channels. And they're showing a significant increase in revenues because they do that. I can understand the connection between more communication and more revenues, but the mix of channels, at least 3 channels, is that something that you were expecting?
I guess maybe I'm biased
Okay.
because I work on this stuff every day, but it's a trend that we've been seeing for the past couple of years in our customer engagement review, that those with more channels tend to do better in terms of like you mentioned, like revenues or keeping customers active for longer and being able to retain those customers. And I really think there's kind of 2 reasons for it. One is that not all customers are active on the same channels. And 2, there's a piece around the ability to drive different messaging at different points in that journey. So email, for example, I, like you, I'm sure, get a lot of emails in my inbox. But there's that idea that, even if I don't read an email, it's creating that awareness in my mind about a brand that maybe I remember, say I went in store to purchase my groceries. Maybe if I've got an email from one of those brands, I remember that. But it's also, say that, I'm looking for trainers and I go onto a marketplace. If that marketplace is able to offer me like more relevant recommendations based on my previous behavior, they're adding utility to my journey for me. They're adding value to that journey and pushing me towards something that is going to help me make a decision. Because, in other research we've done, we've seen that purchase journey often for products now, people are really comparing across like a number of different websites, whether it's on price or features. So being able to steer customers towards valuable outcomes is becoming more and more important as as a bigger ecosystem of touch points.
The report is amazing, but you've come up with something that is extremely rare. You've come up with an anatomy of ACE brands, the anatomy of success, and different things that they're doing. They're engaging on more channels. They're joining up, product marketing in a more cohesive sort of team where everyone owns the experience. So we know a lot of what they need to do, what they've done, and what needs to be done. But let's be fair. Some of them are nice to haves, and some of them are absolute must haves. And for our listeners that earnestly aim to be an ACE brand, it's not an easy goal. What would you like to offer as advice on the steps to get there? If you can't take those giant steps, what can you do to start?
I'd say start by being more customer centric and work out what that means for your brand. Is that channels? Is that we're going to bring in extra data? We're going to maybe move away from more scheduled messaging to more triggered messaging, and thinking about personalization. How can we make this feel like this experience is bespoke for this customer? So it's, at what point and what personalization are we driving? It doesn't have to be on every channel all of the time, but what are the most key areas of our customer journey that are really going to drive towards those valuable outcomes? And then the other piece I think would be happy to try new things, because breaking out of that idea of doing, the same and iterating, you can find some more learnings, even if, that campaign or that messaging doesn't last long term. Being able to bring those new learnings back in is key to, helping you move towards more valuable outcomes.
What would the rule be there? I'm just curious, because it used to be the 80-20 forever. And it seems that we're in different times, so there might be a different rule about how much to keep just the way it is and how much to dedicate toward experimentation.
It's a great question. I don't think we as a company have like a hard and fast rule, but what we really advocate for is testing and learning. A question we always get asked is, how many messages should we be sending per week? And actually, we always flip that around and say, how many messages do your customers want? And how can you test to understand what that looks like? And how can you update the customer journeys to give the right level of messaging? And it can be, breaking out a small number of your customer base, maybe 5%, and sending more messages and working out whether that's actually driving more value for that customer base. Or are we seeing, engagement and some of those downstream metrics start to tail off because people are getting fed up of your messaging? So test and learn, again, I think is the key mantra there.
Couldn't agree more. And it's part of also in your findings, what you're calling, we've heard this before, but not in this context, the importance of data agility. We've heard about agility in organizations. This is data agility, which you also point out is, again, one of those key capabilities that the leaders, the ACEs have, the also-rans do not. But data agility, how does that translate into competitive edge? What is it? Can you unpack that for me and help me understand, help our audience understand how that makes for a better competitive advantage?
A great example would be abandoned cart. So it feels like a very frequent and well-used use case for a lot of brands. I'm showing interest in a product, I've not bought it, and the brand wants to send a follow-up message that's going to incentivize me to make that purchase. Now, I'll give you kind of two options. One is that you get that abandoned cart 15 minutes after, so you may be still in the decision making process, versus being, say, a day or 2 days after you've made that kind of it, you've shown that product intent. The 15 minutes is much better because the speed of a purchase journey is quick. People make decisions quickly, so you can influence it with that. And now I'll add kind of a third lens to that, which would be, imagine now that you've got that abandoned cart notification after you'd made a purchase. Is that a good experience? It's not, because actually it's quite frustrating that I've paid X and I could have saved some money. So data agility is all about the ability to give customers the best experience based on the behavior that they're making. So real time is one element of that, but it also could be that if you say have an online store, it's being able to bring the product inventory data back into your customer engagement so that you can show personalized notifications instead of just best sellers. Or it could be understanding when a customer's most likely to be active and sending messaging around then, because we know that if we send it then, the mantra is always like right message, right time, right channel. Like being able to deliver on that truly, and data agility gives you more tools to be able to go away and execute on that mantra.
Great segue to the tools, because clearly these are companies that innovate, but they don't do it alone. It's because of tools. It's because of a stack. We're even beginning to define now what a sustainable growth stack looks like, just a bit different than the growth stack for obvious reasons. So help me understand what Braze has done, what it's developed, what it's doing differently to unleash this through what it does, its products, its solutions.
I think a big one that we've not talked about too much is ease of use. So if you're a marketer, you don't want to be, spending all of your time doing repetitive tasks. You want to be focusing on more strategies, thinking about how you can improve your campaigns. So one of the key differentiators of Braze is that ease of use to create those cross-channel journeys in like a really easy to use interface. If we talk about test and learn, it's the ability to act on that data and execute on those journeys in like a really super simple way. That's one of the big things. We've mentioned real time. That's another big area where Braze has an advantage over many of the kind of like legacy tools that have a lower data latency. So the last piece around that data agility is how easy it is to bring in data from different sources. So you mentioned a stack. So what does your stack look like? Maybe you've got a loyalty provider, maybe you're thinking about cloud data ingestion, or you want to bring in product data from a data warehouse. Being able to do that in a really easy way is key to the ability to make your stack work really well.
And of course, another part of this is also the consultative part, the support, which is where you are, judging from not only what you do as your role in Braze, but again, coming back to your reputation for being able to build roadmap. Everyone's more than a title. How do you see your role evolving? How do you see what you're doing evolving with regards to where this trend is taking us, or what the requirements will be going forward?
Obviously, AI is peak priority for a lot of organizations in 2024 and beyond. And I see our role in strategic consulting is to help customers understand how they can adopt AI, where they can be most successful with applying AI, and also as new features come to market, where does that fit in their existing stack? How are they making sure that they're being more customer centric with tools like AI? So I think that will be a really big area. And one that I'm loving learning more about is the creative element, and how bringing that brand and creative element into your customer engagement can really drive outsized results. So giving customers the momentum and the ideation to be able to go away and execute on some creative ideas too. I think those are going to be kind of two key elements that we're going to see more of in 2024.
So clearly a part of your remit, and part of our remit here is to focus on sustainable growth. What is it? Why does it matter? So I'm going to wrap with a couple of rapid fire questions around sustainable growth and how to pursue it from your perspective. So let's start with the easy one, right? How do you define sustainable growth, and what is Braze's role in helping marketers achieve this?
Great question. So sustainable growth for me is all about the ability to be around in 5 to 10 years, and not growth at all costs, but growth that's measured and dynamic, where you're putting your resources into the growth flywheel, where you know that you're going to get more out from doing that. And Braze's role in that is really about helping customers, brands, to be dynamic in the way that they're focusing on their customer base. Maybe one day you need more acquisition, so it's thinking about how we can bring more traffic in from like those paid channels, and then turning that traffic into valuable outcomes. So it could be more signups, more first party data, more revenue off the back of that. But being able to understand and quantify and measure that flywheel, and Braze is great at all of those things.
You're also very bullish and very positive, because your motto, I have to say, I love it. There has never been a better time to be a better marketer. How can that be a bad thing? So what do you mean by this at Braze? And again, how can you be so sure?
What we mean is, in 2024, with the addition of AI into the stack, doing marketing should become easier. You've got an easier to use interface. You've got more features and tools that can help you get it right. And you've got a bigger canvas because there's going to be more channels. So, thinking back to that mantra of right message, right time, right channel, Braze is going to help you do that in a much easier way. So there never has been a better time to be a better marketer.
Which brings me to the final question in our wrap: mindset or tool set? What is the biggest challenge, do you think, to achieving sustainable growth?
I'd say it's mindset first, because the tool set will follow. But if you can't be customer centric in your mindset, whatever tools you have, you're not going to deliver on that sustainable growth goal. So you've got to bring the right mindset. And then obviously the tools that you choose are going to be key to the way that you can execute upon that mindset.
Very clearly and well stated. And it has been such an engaging conversation with you, Sam, because it is about engagement marketing. No pun intended there. It's more the connection between the two. So I'd like to end by asking you how our audience can best connect with you as well.
Firstly, I'd say go away and read the customer engagement report. You can find that at braze.com. And then if you've got more questions, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or drop me an email at samuel.miller@braze.com.
Perfect. And I second it. That report is massive but amazing and well worth the read. You just have to brew a coffee for it, because it's a deep one indeed. So I want to thank you again for spending the time, Sam, and for also sharing and encouraging people to connect with you offline as well. Well done. Thanks so much.
Thank you.